Okay, is that? Yes. I just wanted to raise a matter in relation to an item in the Chief Executive's report. The Mayoral Flooding Task Force continuing to work on flood mitigation options. The government announcement yesterday in relation to access to the accommodation supplement, not the accommodation supplement, the temporary accommodation assistance, support available through now for people who are flood affected on the basis that they have received a letter from EQC advising that they're on hold. Given that there will be, and probably not many, but some who may not have received the letter from EQC, but will have been flood affected because of damage to the infrastructure or the creek having its capacity reduced. So it's not an EQC related reason, but it's still an earthquake related reason why they are out of their house, and why it's flooding. And so we want to make some provision for that ourselves in order to just pick up those individuals that may not qualify on that basis. And the easiest way to do this is to take a sum of money, and at this stage $145,057 from the 2014-15 Metropolitan Discretionary Response Fund to the Mayor's Welfare Charitable Trust Fund. So it goes into the Mayor's Welfare Fund to be applied solely towards assistance for flood-affected individuals and families, with the fund being effective from today's date under the administration of the Strategic Initiatives Manager. Would anyone like to move that? Phil Clearwater, seconded. Tim Scandrett. Ali.
Could I just ask a question about that? I missed that in the information that came out yesterday with regards to a letter from EQC, and it was related to repairs only, because my understanding was it was essentially an extension of what the qualification is for people out of their homes. It was people have got a letter from EQC because of their land. Right. So it's damage to land, increased flood vulnerability. Yes. Some people will not get a letter on increased flood vulnerability for their land. We don't think it'll be very many. It might be one person. But people's ability to apply for that assistance is based on that letter? They're based on the letter. So if people, I mean, they have to meet all the other criteria as well, but the letter proves that they are in that category of increased flood vulnerability to land, right? Okay. So what we're saying is that we've got people who will be increased flood vulnerability, but it will be caused not by the reduction in their level of their land, but because of the damage to the wider infrastructure, including the creek's capacity to carry water. So, so what we're saying is that for the few, we don't think there'll be many. There might only be one who doesn't get the letter from EQC. This is just a backstop provision, and it enables us to address them very, very quickly. So I'm surprised it's a different qualification as far as the criteria goes for the flooding to access that than it was for people who are out because of earthquakes. Yes, but to prove that it's earthquake-related damage, it's a very simple way. I mean, I actually think the government's come up with a very neat solution that the increased vulnerability to flooding is in itself earthquake-related damage, and the letter is proof of that. We think that there might be the odd one or two who may not have that, and this solves that problem for them. David.
Can you tell me what's the level of the Metropolitan Discretionary Response Fund, and if we are making these applications, it would be helpful to know, you know, what the fund is when we're making an application and what's left after it.
Yeah.
Morning. The 14-15 Metropolitan Fund is, as that was stipulated up there, that's the total sum of the budget envelope for 14-15.
So we're allocating the entire year's discretionary response fund for this purpose.
That's correct.
And what was it allocated for in the first place?
It's for emergency situations where groups either miss out on the council's deadlines for strengthened communities or small grants, or new projects spring up in the course of a year which fall outside of our application dates.
Well, that concerns me then, that we're actually, before we've even started the financial year, effectively wiped out our entire discretionary response fund.
I wonder if it wouldn't be easier, like the mechanism is fine, just in terms of getting grants to individuals, but I wonder if it wouldn't be easier just to transfer some of it over, and then as we see the use of it, come back for more, or have some available for anything else that could happen.
Well, I suppose my question really would be, what level of funding is required now? Or can the Mayor's Welfare Charitable Trust Fund handle any applications that are required as of this moment, and do we actually need to actually transfer any funds across?
So can we just defer this to later on in the agenda? I mean, I'm sorry, it's I haven't been sufficiently well briefed. I thought we were going to do this through the fund that that is the earthquake fund, but.
Charitable Trust Fund as well for later?
Yeah, no, the Mayor's Charitable Welfare Fund is actually doing quite well because of the directors' fees that are being put into it from directors that serve on CCHL and CDC. So thank you, councillors, for a major contribution. It has helped the fund.
I wonder if the staff might be able to respond to David E's question, though, and in fact we might be able to deal with it now. Is that possible?
Okay.
So we don't have to revisit it.
So we're talking about the Mayor's Welfare Fund at the moment?
Well, no, I guess that's one part, but I guess the main, my understanding from David East was that his concern is about the amount in the fund and approximately how many people might be eligible for that.
But what I can't understand is why are we taking the whole of next year's, the next year allocation, 2014-15. If it was just what was left now, 2013-14, then we would agree to it. But why is it the whole of next year's grant?
If you're talking about 2013-14, DRF was fully expended, but there was a amount of $20,000 that was left for a previous group. So that's the only money that remains in 2013-14. And the resolution was to, for the full sum of 145, but the council could move to reduce that amount and put in a smaller amount to cover for those situations which might arise, as indicated earlier today.
Look, I'm just going to have to accept responsibility for this. I haven't been sufficiently well briefed, so I'll have to deal with it later. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Withdrawing it?
Thank you. We'll deal with it later. We'll move on to... was there anything else in your... Are there any questions of the Chief Executive? Yanni?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the information in regards to asbestos management, but I'm still not clear, given the quite serious revelations that have come out in the recent months, that we actually are doing enough in this space, and I'm really concerned about the health impact and the community impact. So this really tells us what we were doing, but clearly what we've been doing hasn't been working, because we're finding that there's become more and more concern, more cases of things being identified. So can we get like a really clear understanding around how we could mitigate some of these issues going forward, like what we would actually do different, recognising that what we've been doing to date hasn't actually been sufficient?
We can certainly do that. I guess the issue is in terms of what capacity the council and the role that the council has as opposed to other agencies. But we can look at how we can work together with other agencies around a combined approach.
Great, thank you. I've sort of put through a list of like 10 things we could do differently and better. around things like notifying areas, like if you've got a big site being demolished, the fact that nobody around gets notified that it's got asbestos, that there's no clear reporting mechanisms for the community or public to raise concerns about asbestos, the fact that we don't seem to have a regular program of scheduled site visits or unscheduled visits in terms of checking on the practices. And so it may be that we just don't have enough staff, it may be that ECAN doesn't have enough staff, but I really would like us to get something back that looked at being more proactive in this space, particularly when you read, and it's not just asbestos, it's other dust and silica and other things. When you read that consent that NZTA had, where they were breaching just about every single condition in it, and it took months to actually get anything done. So I appreciate the information, but I do think there's another question about what we do.
I think that might be worthwhile having a sort of a more full report to council on all of the issues, who does what, and how that is linked up, because we do play an important regulatory role,
Absolutely.
but so do the other agencies. And I agree with you. I think there were buildings that were taken down in the CBD that people had no notification that they were filled with asbestos, and there will be issues about that for a long time.
Can I just flag that, in fact, the Environmental Committee has discussed this issue and we've asked for a report, and I understand from Mike Chelan that, in fact, the report is coming this month.
Oh, good. So we'll deal with that through the Environmental Committee, and then it will come to full council.
But really what I'm asking, I guess, is that, like, I'm not satisfied with the current practice. When this joint group was set up, that was in response to recognising that the current practices weren't working. What we've seen since this group's been set up is actually this still isn't the most effective way of dealing with it. I suspect it's an issue around resourcing, but when the report comes back to the Environment Committee, can I just ask that there is consideration about what we do in a more proactive space rather than just relying on what we're currently doing?
Yep.
I just had two other questions in this report. One was the Port Hills. The mass movement report's been delayed again until peer reviews of those reports. Have those peer reviews been done, or if not, when are they scheduled to be finished?
Can Mike Chelan perhaps?
I think we're waiting for the last of those peer reviews to come in.
So these were supposed to be done by like the start of May. I'm really concerned that we're 2 months behind.
Well, that's. I think we've already previously advised you on that, Councillor, and that was that the peer reviews, the international peer reviews, have taken longer than we and GNS anticipated. So we've actually briefed you on that before. Right. So we are getting those, and obviously, as you know, we are working with the Crown on that information as well. So
when can we expect a report around what's happening with land mass movement areas based on the peer reviews?
I think the Mayor has asked for us to present to a workshop on that, so we're just arranging a briefing to councillors on that.
Like in the next few weeks, in the next month, 3 months?
That's dependent on particularly on the Mayor and Councillors' availability, but we're able to go to that as soon as we get a date. Yep.
Okay, fine. And this the final question from me was, and again, thank you for the Avon River information. We still don't really have a schedule of capital works and costs associated with each one, so budgets and timeframes, but it is good to get the OPEX, which is a staggering 1.4 million more, or 1.3 million more than what we're currently doing. We've been told that we've got a 3% increase in our budget coming in 15-16 for OPEX for anchor projects. Taking this as an example, we've got a major issue, and given that the consent's already been applied for, I do wonder if we have any chance to modify the scope of this Avon River precinct, because having a huge increase like that, 1.3 million per year, is quite significant.
Yes, I can't comment specifically on that, but I understand that Don Michel from Sarah is committed to coming and talking to the council about those issues and about the timeframes. So you can organise that.
Can I ask that the consent that's been lodged, do we have any information as to whether that will be publicly notified or not, because again, that's probably something that is concerned, but we can get a memo back on that. But I think given the consent's being lodged, there's no reason why the government shouldn't be able to give us really clear, detailed capital expenditure and timeframes. Thank you.
I can follow up on that, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll move that the report... Oh. Yep.
First one, page on 743, regarding to the asbestos disposal. I just want to know what is the procedure for the City Council provide education and advice to the homeowners, especially they, to dispose those asbestos, because this kind of bigger risk.
Sorry, but could we deal with that in the report to the Environment Committee?
That would certainly be covered in the report which the Environmental Committee have requested.
So the Environmental Committee is receiving a report on the whole asbestos issue.
I can't remember. I was in one.
If we could include education, the role of the council in terms of educating people around safe use or safe disposal or whatever, then let's include it with the Environmental Committee report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, in the last, I remember the 18th CEO report, I asked one question regarding to all those key anchor project or the key community facilities, whether the staff can provide the master schedule, give us overall view. For instance, when we do the kind of the draft or detail, the feasibility study, when we carry on the kind of concept design, detailed design, and the construction. Otherwise, every time we just, to review the just small portion, we don't know whether the project has ahead of schedule, behind the schedule, or comply with the schedule. Then I remember CEO promised no problems. I just don't know when we will get this information.
Well, that's facility rebuild schedule.
Yeah, it's not just the facilities rebuild schedule, it's the dovetailing of our major rebuild facilities with the anchor projects that Sarah's leading on as well. So it's a combination. Jimmy's been very clear that it's not just about the anchor projects that are signed up for and the cost share and the blueprint. It's the important facilities like the Southwest Hub. Is that what it's called? No. I mean, just included in it so that we've got all of our big ones. We know where they are fitting along that line.
Yeah,
so
master schedule.
A master schedule. Yeah, very good. Paul Lonsdale.
Just want to get an understanding for the operational costs as we've budgeted for the Central Library, Metro Sports and Bus Exchange. The current budget that's set in here, how does that compare to the budgets we had prior to the earthquakes on the library and the Bus Exchange and the Metro Sports, if we put that into relation to the perhaps the Kuritu Park, which will be probably the closest to the Metro Sports. So if we can get an understanding what the difference is, if there is a difference, and that'll actually impact our budget.
We'll come back with that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll move that the report be received. Do I have a seconder? Jimmy Chen. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. Thank you. You've survived your first report. So, thank you. Now, look, I've arranged for the group that was going to brief us on the Port Hills issue to come in at 1 o'clock, which would mean breaking now for lunch. The only thing that I'm worried about is that we haven't got very far on the agenda and we've got to deal with other issues. I'm actually of the view that we shouldn't proceed to have the Port Hills briefing today. I think we should leave it until the next meeting, if people are agreeable to that. And then I'd like to take another few minutes just to see how far we can get on the agenda and maybe break for lunch at about quarter to 1 or 1 o'clock. All right? So if you could cancel the experts.